Hey, everybody. Happy Sunday, and welcome to another episode of Cosmic Besties. This is your go-to space for deep and soulful conversations that should feel like hanging out with your best girlfriends. So, whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or just dipping your toes into the mystical for the first time, this channel is here to hopefully give you a safe space where you can expand your mind, spark your intuition, and make the unknown feel like home. So today, Christy and I really wanted to talk to you about a journey that has been important to both of us, and that is the journey of authenticity. It is, 40 years, 40 some years in the making for both of us. Um, and just to kind of level set, I'm gonna actually leverage one of my favorite authors a few times throughout this podcast today. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar with her, you should definitely check her out. But her name is Brene Brown, and Brene describes authenticity as the daily practice of embracing your true self. And I think it's really hard for most of us to show up and do that on a regular basis because we have all of these lived experiences we've had throughout life that have at times made us feel unsafe to be our true selves. Um, and one of the things I really liked about how Brene describes, kind of not being authentic, she talks about this concept of wearing armor or wearing a mask. And so, the some of the ways that you might actually wear armor or a mask could be like numbing, perfectionism, being a knower or always having to be right or win the arguments, reacting versus responding, and we can get into what that means, but also scarcity mindset or fear mindset and fitting in culture. So whether that manifests as, or I guess that most commonly manifests as like people pleaser stuff. So those are the different kinds of armors. But Christy and I were talking, and I think we've both had our own journeys with embracing our authenticity, and they've looked slightly different. We've also worn slightly different armors at different times, though we do have commonalities.
Mhm.
Um, Christy, what's your experience been?
Oh gosh, hopping right in. Well, I would say I feel like something happens. I don't know. I mean, I'm a girl, so I can't speak for boys, but I think for girls around, I want to say seventh grade, so maybe when puberty is hitting, something shifts and something changes like in our minds, and we're suddenly like aware of everybody else and everybody looking at us, of unwanted attention from like boys now. Um, and you're just more aware of how you look and how you're being perceived. And so you start to collect these stories, and these stories don't necessarily have anything to pertain about your truth and who you truly are as a soul. But nevertheless, you're like collecting them and just kind of like adding these layers to you that don't necessarily represent who you truly are. But I think for me, a lot of it was focused around, well, there was a couple of things, like definitely like fear. I struggled to fit in. I was different. I was half Colombian. We moved around a lot, so I was always the new kid. I had, red hair. I always kind of felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb. And I didn't really know where I fit because if I wasn't the new kid, then I was the kid that was half Hispanic who didn't look Hispanic. Um, so I just kind of always felt like I was in this in between, which I think a lot of people can kind of relate to. And because of that, one of the ways that I guess my inauthenticity or my mask that I put on that, I represented was through control and getting like, I'm going to be open here and talk about it, which feels a little uncomfortable, but I think sharing, hopefully, maybe other people can relate to this. One of the ways that I hid was by shrinking myself, and that was through starving myself. I had a long internal battle with body image from, I would say, sixth grade. You don't ever get over it. You're always struggling, but really sixth grade until my like early 30s. And I would just starve myself or not eat. And I was so hypercritical and so aware of other people's opinions. Which is funny because when you hit your 40s, like I really don't care what anybody thinks. Like the only opinion that matters is like, am I being true to myself? And am I being a good person? Am I being pure with my intentions? But it's definitely a journey, it's definitely a road. So I think that was one of the things I did. I definitely was a people pleaser. I would choose other people over myself 100% of the time. I got myself into situations that um were not great because I was such a kind of doormat and not voicing what I truly thought or what I truly felt. And when you're doing that, you're like doing a disservice to yourself because you're not honoring who your soul is and who you came to this earth to be.
Yeah.
I think it's a journey that like all of us, especially women, go down.
Yeah. Yeah. My My story, while different, is also so much the same. I also felt a lot like I didn't fit in. I didn't move around nearly as much as you did, but we definitely moved at some really pivotal times in my life. And so I think it's always hard when you're getting into a new space and you're having new friend groups and stuff like that. But I remember just before middle school, we moved to a new place. And then there was a situation I had in middle school where there was a betrayal. I came to school one day, and for reasons I still don't understand today, one of my friends and several others wrote me a note saying that they didn't want to be my friend anymore. And so, like, those little things that happen over time make you want to put that armor on. And so, my family didn't have a ton of money growing up either. So like I was like we'd always, buy our clothes at garage sales or get hand-me-downs from our cousins and whatnot. And so for me, like my armor was kind of being the perfectionist. I if I could do it all, well then I was finally enough. So I often worked multiple jobs from middle school onward and tried to do all of the activities and get perfect grades. And it became this sort of like neural pathway or belief, right or wrong in my head that, well, if I did all of these things, then I would be enough and everything would turn out okay. Um, but because of that, I feel like it was a somewhat lonely experience. Like, you're always so busy, you don't have time to connect deeply to people. It's also hard when you're in situations like high school where like I don't know about you, but like I felt like I bounced around. Like I didn't quite fit into one particular friend group. So I would
Mhm.
sort of like um
You
I
were
would,
a floater,
what'd you say?
a floater.
Yeah, I was like a floater, and so I would fit in enough with different friend groups and stuff, but it wasn't like deep relationships. And I remember feeling right before graduation, we were at like a sports banquet, and I was the captain of a team, and I gave a speech, and I remember feeling this like really strong emotional feeling about like being so sad that an era was ending, but like no one else was connecting on that deep of a level. Like everyone else kind of just blew it off. And I remember just feeling so disappointed in how everyone else was reacting or not reacting. And so, um, yeah, that perfectionism and stuff continued well into to college for me. And then sometimes it would become so overwhelming that I think that, I would the numbing came in. I know you had similar experiences with like alcohol, but like being around a ton of people, feeling overwhelmed and feeling like I had to try to fit in, like it was so much easier to just have a few drinks and then it was easier to be yourself and whatnot. But I wasn't actually being myself. I was wearing a mask and the numbing put on a different mask or a different set of armor.
Yeah. I think for you and for me, we both like had similarities in that feeling of like not feeling enough. And like for you, perfectionism was like how you derived like love, maybe. Like
Hmm.
if I could just get straight A's or, accomplish X, Y, and Z, then I'm enough for everybody and people were like me. Whereas I was like, well, if I could just be this persona of somebody that I think is like bubbly and full of life when really like I'm actually like a naturally an introvert, or if I could just be skinny enough and pretty enough, then people will like me, people will love me. And what we you don't know at that young age where, I think this is life experience and just learning as you grow up is that that's not love. Like the only love that you need, the only way you're going to truly love yourself is by loving yourself. It's not through all the likes that you get on your Instagram reels. It's not through how many friends you have on Facebook. It's not how many, snaps you get. Gosh, man, these kids growing up today, like my heart hurts for these kids because there's so much that is just out there where, we were a little bit more protected by.
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely see what you're saying about like the numbing and having that be an additional mask, which is something I never really, I think, like comprehended before or really understood on that level was how I was putting on like a almost like a costume because you would drink and you're right, it would change you. Like you would
Yeah.
loosen up. You would, for me, it was I would drink to cover up anxiety because I was anxious and I had things from my past that I was dealing with, and it just was easier to numb myself and not feel. Um, that was like kind of the only way I could go out for a while was like I had to be drunk. And then it kind of trickles down into your life and you realize, okay, like there are issues and I don't like who I am when I'm doing this because it's not you. It's like you're internally, your soul recognizes that that's not you. That's not who you truly are. And like you're straying from that North Star, like farther and farther, the more you numb.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's absolutely, you're right. Like it is a piece of armor. Like you're protecting yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that Brene Brown says is that really we have to fully and fundamentally feel like we're worthy of love and acceptance in order to truly show up as our authentic selves. And I think for most people, it's a journey and people get there at different times. Now, here we are in our 40s and we're both finally there, right? I think we both
Yeah.
feel worthy of love and acceptance, but it took a long time. And the
Mhm.
hardest part is letting go of those societal expectations. And I think to some degree it's challenging because it can feel like rebellion, right? Like
Mhm.
we're encouraged to go buy all of the things that are advertised on TV. We're
Mhm.
encouraged to show up to happy hour and have drinks with everyone. We're encouraged to do all of these things, whether
Yeah.
or not those are things we enjoy or represent who we are, because that's what society says is the norm.
Mhm.
I think that as we're able to kind of separate from those societal expectations or rebel or whatever, just not not become or fall into that trap, then I think we can actually be our authentic selves.
Yeah. It's like peeling back those layers and remembering who you've always been.
Mhm.
And I think that the pressure that society puts on, especially women, like even just with aging, like women aren't allowed to age anymore, basically. I had a friend send me this. It was like something like on Instagram, a video of this woman who went to a plastic surgeon in St. Louis. And she was like, oh my gosh, like she's like 60, but she looks 20 and she had all this work done. And I was like, gosh, like, but when I'm 60, like I want to look 60. Like that means that I've lived a life. That means that like I've lived a good life, hopefully, that I have these wrinkles and these smile lines. And um I'm just like, can't we just like age gracefully? Do why do we have to like do all these operations?
Yeah,
Um, and again, like that's because like society is like putting you're wearing this mask. You're having to be somebody you're not. You're like preventing yourself from literally from aging.
yeah,
Um, and I think that it's hard to do sometimes because it's so much in your ear and like it's everywhere. Like, and everywhere you look, you're being like bombarded with these stories or like, through advertisements or through like influencers trying to sell you stuff. Like, do you think they really care about like all those serums? No, like they're getting paid to tell you to use them.
yeah,
Um, and I think that like learning how to quiet that noise and really like sit with yourself and be like, okay, what is it that I truly like? I remember for a while, like I was like, I don't even know what I truly like because I felt like I was always just like molding myself to whomever was in front of me. Like you would say, like, oh, like I love sunny side up eggs. I'd be like, oh, I do too. Like those are my favorite. And then like I think later, I'd be like, no, I don't. Like I like hard boiled eggs. Like I don't like it when they're runny and gooey. But it's you're just it's so quick. And I think people like us and maybe kids that have gone through um like I call it like staccato energy, where it's like your life is not like completely like straight, where you have like these little like blips throughout your lives. It almost causes you, I think, to be like a people pleaser a little bit. Either going to be a people pleaser, you're going to be totally avoidant and like kind of go the opposite direction. And I think that I don't know where I was going with that, but
Well,
now
what
I'm thinking
you're
about eggs. And I'm like, I kind of want like a hard boiled egg.
What you're saying
Um,
resonates though. Like though
yeah.
actually so I do a ton of authenticity focused coaching with the people that I coach because we have these neural pathways and there are different personas to these neural pathways we create. So like you kind of alluded to a couple, right? Like the people pleaser and the controller.
Mm.
I alluded to one of them, which for me is like the perfectionist. But some people turn into avoiders or victims, or some people are the hypervigilance, where they're waiting for, the shoe to drop,
Oh, yeah.
sky to fall. And so, like,
Mhm.
everyone has their own way of kind of coping with these societal expectations, and their brain forms these pathways that become a habit over time. And so, I appreciate that you brought that up because when you said avoider, I was like, yeah, there's lots of different flavors. So
Yeah,
for
I
other
think
people,
there are. There
yeah,
are people that are going to try to like do everything to make other people feel comfortable because they feel like that's going to give them love. And then there are people that I think are like runners that are like so used to having to take care of themselves that they can't allow themselves to like rely or lean on anybody, which I think was a little bit maybe what you were dealing with your perfectionism. That's kind of how you coped, maybe a little bit. I don't know, I could be wrong, but for me, like dealing with what I was dealing with growing up, I think that the one, like the control through like my eating, but also through like the people pleasing and trying to like be so nice. Like I do you remember it went through Instagram um gosh, not too long ago where it's like the little girls are doing like this game and they're singing like don't be polite to men who creep you out. Um, I'm like, I feel like that is such an important thing to treat your kids is that like you don't like if somebody's making you feel uncomfortable or if you're in a situation where you don't feel respected, you don't have to be polite. Whereas like me, little Christiana would have been like overly polite and overly kind because I just thought that like that's what I had to do.
yeah, yeah, that is so true. I think what you just talked about doing is kind of setting boundaries, right? From a
Mm.
very young age. Like, what would our lives have looked like if we had had better boundaries or had known what our self-worth was to draw the line in the sand between what we tolerated and what we wouldn't tolerate?
Yeah. Oh, I think about that all the time. And I do something called like a soul retrieval in my soul sessions where we go back in time and we find like where your soul was fragmented. So, like a
Mm.
lot of times you go through things and it literally causes a piece of your soul to stay behind. And so we'll go through and we'll go back and like through sending Reiki, we're able to retrieve that piece of your soul to either come back to you or to release and just send it lots of light and love. And there have been so many times where I've done it for myself and I'm like, gosh, I want to shake like 20-year-old Christy and be like, you were so much better than this. Like, why don't you love yourself? Like just love yourself. But I think I don't know. I'd be super curious what people when people watch this if they would please comment and explain or share their experiences because I kind of feel like these are things that like your soul or certain souls maybe are meant to go through in order to learn. Like I think that some souls learn their lessons through experience and other souls maybe just come and know have that inner knowing. I think you
Yeah.
and I definitely like learned through experience. Our souls are like give it to me. Like, send me all the lessons.
Yes, yes. I've had a few readings from people, and I can confirm that they have independently told me that I'm supposed to learn through experience. But something else you said really made me want to reiterate, like, I call like myself a recovering perfectionist because every day I have to make a choice to embrace the authenticity. Every day I have to remind myself that it's okay. I have a fear of being seen that is from many lifetimes in the past, many lifetimes of being persecuted for gifts and for who I was. And so when you
Yeah.
have many lifetimes of that, and then it's again showing up in this lifetime, it's like an
Mhm.
everyday reminder or being mindful to show up as who I am and be okay with it. Like there was definitely even 6 or 7 months ago when we were talking about doing this, I was like, oh, yeah, but people have this view of who I am from my work in like the corporate world and as a leadership and executive coach. Like, will
Mhm.
people still take me seriously if I go out there and talk about, this part of me? And I had to get over it. I had to say, okay, there's a limiting belief I have that says, you know, I am not enough or people will think
Mhm.
less of me because I'm showing up fully. But at the end of the day, what I've come to realize, and you've helped me with this, is that the right people will come to me for coaching, and the right people will still stay in my life and respect me when I
Mhm.
am showing up as my full authentic self, because that is the gift, right? Like when I am my full authentic self, I can actually do my best work because I'm not worrying about, the mask I might be wearing or the armor that I'm wearing. I'm
Yeah.
lighter because those things are not present.
Oh, I think that's so powerful too. And it's such a good lesson to learn and a good lesson to like teach our kids as well. Um, the fear of being seen, like that's so real. And I think that's gonna resonate with a lot of people. I don't feel that as much right now. I think I definitely did when I was younger, which is why I would try to shrink myself, make myself as small as I could. Um, but you're right. Like I think there's something so well, let's think of it like as we're all energy. And when you are being authentic, when you are stepping into that vibration of authenticity, you're sending out that you're sending out that signal,
Yeah.
and you're going to be attracting other people that are going to be like you. So all of those people that don't align with your soul are just falling away. And then the people that do align with you are going to be attracted and coming in, or they're just going to like you walk around and you'll just meet somebody and be like, oh, like there you are. Like where have you been? Like it's because your essence is all of these layers, all of these masks that we put on
Mhm.
are starting to come off, and it's like your true self can shine forth, and other souls that are also vibrating on that same vibrational level are going to feel it, and you guys will be attracted to each other. And that's when like expanders can come in and manifestations can come in, because it's like the universe recognizes like, ah, okay, she's being who she truly is, who she's truly meant to be. And I'm so curious what your north node is, because I wonder if it's something that has to do with like speaking your truth or living your truth, if that's like a lesson that your soul has come here to learn. It's my north node is in Gemini, and it's all about like learning to communicate and speak your truth.
My North Node is in Cancer. I don't know what that means though.
Oh, I don't know, cancers are supposed to be like very nurturing. They're like the caregivers um of the zodiacs. We'll have to look that up and see, because I don't know. None of my kids have a north node in Cancer, so I don't know.
Um, well, yeah. So I guess as Christy mentioned earlier, we would love to hear your own stories. So if you're comfortable, drop a comment in and let us know what your authenticity journey has looked like. What have you struggled with? And what are you proud of at this point?
Yeah. And I also think it's really interesting, like energetically, your throat chakra is where like your authenticity lies. And so a lot of times people who lose their voice a lot, or who get sore throats, or people that have like thyroid issues, a lot of it has to do with an underlining like not being true to yourself, or not listening to that truth that's inside of you. And I think a lot of people will find when they start like getting rid of the bullshit and really stepping into their truth and not feeling the fear of being seen, a lot of those issues that they're feeling will just like naturally go away, which is kind of cool. Like I've seen it happen. Um, before, and it really is true.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
And I,
interesting because like what you just talked about, I have an autoimmune or have had an autoimmune thyroid disease. And at times I have been able to kind of send it into remission in my life. And I've never gone back to actually like map out like what was going on in my life when it was in remission versus when it was flaring up, but it could be really interesting for me to look.
yeah. I think that also stress plays like a big role in like flare-ups and autoimmune stuff. And sometimes I wonder if like the stress of having to be hidden and the stress of not being able to feel like you're safe enough to show who you truly are, if that causes like inflammation and flare-ups within bodies.
Yeah, you could totally be right. I I'm gonna have to noodle on that a little bit more and go back and think about like my stress levels too. I'll
Yeah.
be posted.
Yeah, because to me it feels like it's energetically connected, where like if you're having to hide yourself or have so many, and it's like buildup, right? Like people talk about like plaque buildup in your blood. Like it's years
Yeah.
and years and years. It doesn't just happen overnight. So these years and years and years of having to hide yourself or having to quiet that voice so that you fit in, that like builds up over time, and that's when like I feel like issues can come about. When we were just talking about this is a not necessarily authenticity related, but kind of related to what we're talking about right now. I was just really sick when we were over spring break. And
Mhm.
Kelly, you brought up, you were like, well, I think it's because like it was a lesson. And the lesson was that like I wasn't really listening to myself and I wasn't slowing down and I was being too much for other people and not enough for myself. And that literally my body like physically just broke down. It was like no more. Like it's gonna force me to focus on myself and focus on my health. Um, so I think that like that definitely happens in life. Your body, like it's like the emotion is first, and if you don't listen to it, then physical things are gonna come about.
You are 100% correct. Yes. It's crazy how that happens, but it's definitely a real thing.
Yeah. So you
Um,
might as well be authentic because it's gonna like cause less issues in the long run.
yes, that's the moral of the story. Authenticity is always the best.
Yeah. So
Um,
maybe you can share some ways that I guess like I don't know, how people can take the mask off or feel safe in their bodies. I mean, I can share what I do, but since like I feel like you are an authenticity coach and you know so much about it, maybe you can share some like three like of your main tips or something.
Well, first, I think it comes down to being just aware of knowing who you are. And if it's been a while since you got in touch with yourself, then I think it's doing something as simple as making a list of like 50 things that you love or that you're interested in. I know that sounds really strange, but as we shift and go through different phases in life, it can be really easy to lose ourselves in our work, in our families, in our friends, in our hobbies. And so if you don't feel like you know who you are, then it's time to deep dive and do some exploration first. I often give that assignment to coaching clients when they're really trying to figure out what they want, because if you don't know who you are, it's hard to figure out what you want and
Yeah.
where you want to go. So that's definitely one of them. Number two, I would say mindfulness practice. Um, I mentioned kind of the different personas earlier that our brains create within ourselves for us to cope with different lived experiences. Those personas like the perfectionist or the controller or the victim or the avoider, they're all there because they're meant to protect us. It's just once we get to adulthood, they might not actually be protecting us as much as we think they are, and they might be hindering who we are. And so, exploring that can be really helpful. There's a great book written by an executive coach who actually came up with a lot of those personas. The book is called PQ and Positive Intelligence, and he calls Positive Intelligence PQ in the book. And the author is Shirzad Chamine. So if you're interested in exploring that, that can be a great book to read. And then lastly, work with a coach. A
Mhm.
coach can be a great way to deep dive into who you are, what your values are, what you really want to curate for the rest of your life because, you know, the future has not happened yet. So it really just takes you waking up the next day ready to change.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think sometimes just working with a coach, like having somebody else hold space for you and listen to you and help, like it's almost as if you give them permission to do like the inner work. Like you give them permission to go to the depths and really figure out what it is they want, which can be hard to do on your own, especially when you're so much in your mind and not enough like in your heart.
Yeah.
Um, I think sometimes going to somebody who doesn't have like as a neutral opinion, doesn't necessarily like know you like a friend,
Yeah.
can really be healing. So definitely like if you guys are struggling with this, reach out to Kelly because um I know that like having somebody in your corner who has also been through it can be healing in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
and I use the analogy that like, okay, you've had a personal trainer before, right?
me, yeah,
Okay, so have
or
I.
just anybody.
So have I. And so we go to a personal trainer because we want to help, we want sort of a neutral person to hold us accountable for getting our physical body in shape. So I often describe coaches as kind of like personal trainers, but for your life and for
Mm.
your emotional well-being and your mind. And so think of that as the analogy. So just like you might try on different personal trainers to find the right one, there's lots of coaches out there. So have calls with different coaches and find the right one for you.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important too to know. You touched on something too, which I think is going to resonate with a lot of people, is the whole losing yourself at different stages. I
Mm,
don't know about you, but I think that like motherhood is like that's a big transition from going from like girl or woman to mother, and that's a big one where I think women lose themselves. Like there was just actually I was just talking about this with Patrick on the way to our son's game today.
mhm.
Was it Chapel? I can't even God, I sound like such a 42-year-old. Is it Chapel Roan?
Yep.
Pink Pony Club girl.
Yes.
She just did this interview and she's kind of getting a lot of like um pushback from the moms about how like women or all of her friends who are mothers like have lost themselves and they've like lost the light in their eyes and
Mm,
basically saying like how like motherhood like strips you from who you truly are. And I definitely think that like there is like a little nugget of truth in that. And I think that it's biological. I think that like when you have a baby, like in order for the baby to survive, like there is something biologically going inside of you where you kind of put your own needs aside and just focus so much on the baby. And I think the problem is if you don't ever like pull yourself back out of that,
mm,
that's when you can lose yourself. And then like you see like empty nesters going through another transition where they're like, well, who am I? Like if I'm not this like caretaker, if I'm not this mother taking care of her kids, like, you know, I don't even know what my hobbies are. And so you see like another transition there. Um, so that's why I think it's so important before you bring children into this world, if you can, just make sure you really know who you are. That's going to benefit you so much more in the long run. Like journaling, going to a life coach like Kelly, doing meditations. Like to me, I think that one of the ways that I can differentiate between like, is this really my needs and my wants, or is this like what I'm thinking everybody else really wants for me is by seeing how my body reacts and getting really quiet. And like I will even go so far as I will take, sounds so crazy. And actually I don't think it's crazy because I saw somebody talk about this recently and she does it too. I will take like supplements and like hold them up to my solar plexus and I'll be like, wait, does this feel right to me? And I literally will like feel a vibration. And if it's a certain way, like if I like vibrate in a certain way, I know myself well enough to know which way that is.
mm,
I'll know if it's for me or not. And I do that sometimes like in my mind with people that you're meeting for the first time. I'll be like, okay, like is this like a connection that that is going to be like good for me, good for my soul? And I'll wait and see what it feels like in my body. So I think like getting to know yourself, you get to know yourself like mentally, but also on that soul level is really important too.
Yeah, so much so. Well, I think we're out of time for this one today.
We talk forever.
I know, I could too. I could too. We could probably do a whole nother episode on
Yeah.
identity and self-worth and stuff. Maybe that'll be another
Yeah.
topic.
I think it'd be really interesting. We should come up with like an archetype quiz that people can take
Oh,
because you were
yeah.
talking about how the different, I don't think you used the word archetype, but you did something where you were like, if you're an avoider or a perfectionist. But I think we could create our own thing. It'd be interesting to see like the percentages, like where people lie.
Yeah.
Um, because I have a feeling like people, like we're all connected in a way, like it's all a big web.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, that might be kind of
Um,
fun to explore.
Really quick before we wrap up, shout out to our 30 subscribers. I know 30 doesn't sound like a ton to most people, but we're really excited that you're all here and you're all watching. And we appreciate you. And we hope that this is helping you feel like, comfortable to talk about all of these topics, whether that's with friends, family, colleagues, whoever.
Yeah, and to feel less alone because you're not alone. Like we're in it with you. Even if it's just the two of us, like we're in it with you. We're a little trio.
Yeah, a trio.
Yeah.
Well, have a wonderful day, everybody, and we'll see you next time.